Today I'm going to talk about another item, which this item is related to how to actually analyze and translate. This is a kind of translation process whereby I will analyze this item, which is tourists seek plan B for Rwanda if policy fails. Migrants could be sent to volcanic island instead. And this particular item is what is so special about it is that I'm going to actually tell you that it is an expository type of text. Expository in the sense that it has got facts, figures, statements by various sources, and no opinion by the writer. So the writer does not express their opinion in this kind of article. What they do is just tell other sources what do they think, whether they are Labour or Conservatives in this one. And we need to know this as a translators. It's a kind of information that is extremely important. Let's look at the actual story in detail. I'll read that for you. Ministers have resurrected proposals to send legal migrants to Britain's overseas territories, thousands of miles away, as part of alternative options to tackle the small boats crisis. Ascension Island, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll just run it like this, and I will try to sort of help you look at all the various points in it. Okay, you can always pause the video in order to know the exact words of the story, because I don't want to spend so much time reading the story. I want you to make sure that you understand all the various points while you just run the video and read these parts of the story. Now, I will analyze the story in a minute. Of course, this is not the picture. This is not a picture for the story. Now, as you can see at the bottom, it says continued on page 6. So I'm just going to go to page 6 and show you what's on page 6 as well, which is part of the story, which I will cover on various, I will cover. And this is the completion of that story, which is quite a long story, really. It takes a long time to actually explain in one particular session, but I will try to sort of give you an idea what's in the story. I just zoom into some parts of the story so you can see the exact wording. And you can always pause to make sure that the story is read by you in full, because I don't have time to actually read the story and also explain it to you and also analyze it for you. So it's difficult to do all that at the same time. You can see at the bottom it says here, the government has talked tough while doing little, leading article, page 25. That means that the writer is going to express their opinion in this one, which is argumentative story, argumentative article. That will be in the middle of the newspaper, which is analytical. This is expository, which is descriptive mostly, and telling us what other sources have said. Now let's go back to the beginning and look at this story in particular and see what kind of points that we need to raise. Now here, of course, as you can see, let me just adjust the paper. Okay, so now what are the points that we need to raise here? There are many points, but let me just show you some of my PowerPoint so you can actually be familiar of what kind of points that you need to be raising or looking at or considering in this particular article. So as I said, what you need to be doing is you need to be looking at the story by yourself reading it, so that you don't have to wait for me to read the whole thing. It's going to be very, very boring for you to read it, especially as I have just showed you how it is. Now, the first thing is the text type, which is expository. It's a news item, and there are facts. You will see that there are some, like for example, the 400,000 miles away from Britain. This is one. It's a volcanic island. These are facts, figures, numbers. Statements by various people. You will find that various people are stating, but not the writer of the actual article. And that is really important because it's a news item and it's not a feature, or it's not an editor kind of writing here. So that's why he's expressed that there will be the Labour Party people talking, NGOs, people talking. But there is a kind of expression in a way, there is a kind of opinion, which is through the order of his news article, leaving statements by Labour and NGOs, last 2 paragraphs, whereas the other 15 paragraphs are about Conservatives, the government, ministers, Tories, the Foreign Office, and so on. So this is the kind of what you expect in an article like this, is to have these kind of facts and figures and statements by others, but not by the author. Now, when we go to the sources, who are the sources from which this editor is using? Tories, which is Conservatives, the Appeal Court, the Times, which is the newspaper from which I am using this particular piece to translate, the Supreme Court, senior government source, ministers, officials, government, Foreign Office, Labour, and Refugee Committee. You can see that the Tories, Hizb al-Muhafidhin, Appeal Court, محكمة الاستئناف, the Times, which is the صفحة جريدة Times, the Supreme Court, المحكمة العليا, source, government, a senior government source, which is مصدر من الحكومة, من شخص مسؤول في الحكومة. senior معناها ممكن يكون minister, ministers الوزراء, officials مسؤولين, government الحكومة, foreign office. What is foreign office? وزارة الخارجية. foreign office, labor, حزب العمال, and refugee committee, لجنة اللاجئين. So you see all of these are sources. كل هذه مصادر. كل هذه المصادر لا يتحدث عنها الكاتب، يتحدث عنها الكاتب ولا يتحدث عن رأيه في المقال. So there's no expression by the writer or the author, except for the, as I said, the coverage itself shows that it's the Times is a right-wing newspaper, so therefore more paragraphs written by, as I said earlier, written by the actual author. So that's why you have 15 paragraphs about the ministers and the government, and you got only 2 paragraphs at the end by Labour, one by Labour, and the other is by the NGO, which is like NGOs means the منظمات المجتمع المدني، ومنها الكوميتي هذه اللي هي كوميتي تبعية اللاجئين. You can see, you can tell that it's not really except for 2 paragraphs. If you look at, if I turn around to show you where it is in this one here, you will find that it is actually in the last 2 paragraphs. Only the last 2 paragraphs, if I zoom in closely here to show you, okay, only the 2 last paragraphs, which is these 2. Okay, let me just make sure you see it. It's these 2. This one is about Labour, and this one is from the refugee. Enver Solomon, the name. Okay, and this one is doing the refugee, and this one is Labour. These are the only 2 paragraphs whereas the rest is about the government, and the government is a Tory government, as you know. So this is quite an interesting kind of pointing out. There's the other point, which is about the photo and the caption, which I'll come back to in a minute. But for now, this is where we are at the moment. Let's go back to the actual presentation, and I will try to give you some more analysis, because that will be really useful for you to make you more confident when you are translating. And that's the idea here. Now, of course, the sources, as I said, Tories, blah, blah, we've seen that. And then after that, we have the addressees. Who are we addressing? Who are the people that we are addressing? And here, in this case, we are addressing, the newspaper is addressing, or the writer, the author, is addressing readers of the Times. And it will be highbrow or right-wing party members, perhaps, and also international readers overseas and abroad. These are the ones who will read this kind of newspaper. These are the ones that are being considered. You can tell that that is what is happening. Now let's look at the features of the text. We have paratextuality, that I will look at, cohesion, which is syntax, tenses, diacritics, which is pointing words, references like pronouns, noun phrases. And then we have coherence, which is object and action concepts and their links, how you link them, you link between the verb and the noun, as we did that before in the previous videos about this particular translation process. See the other videos about translation process. They will tell you more about object and action concepts, which I explained, and they are actually talked about by Beaugrande. And then we have Lexis, which is idioms and cultural items or expressions. We will look for first at the paratextuality, which means that, as I said before, that is relating to, sorry about that, but the word main is a bit far off, so I just go back to the beginning of that and try to push it so that you can see the whole text. Okay, here, so paratextuality means peritext. Peritext means images, textual elements that are secondary to the main text, such as introduction notes and cover, front cover of books, etc. And in this case, we have peritext. The caption, Ascension Island, has been earmarked as potential plan B for migrants. And there is a photo as well. Let me just show you that on the actual paper, and you can tell that there is the picture, the photo of this island, and also the caption. You can tell that this is what's happening here. You've got the photo and the caption. What do they do? This information is very helpful. This information is extremely helpful when you are actually trying to translate, because it gives you information here. The caption gives you information and also the actual picture of the island. And then we go back to the photo and the caption, which is the peritext. And after the peritext, which is the caption and the which is important for the translator and important for the article, of course. And there's epitext, which is interviews, reviews, and marginal notes. And in this case, we have marginal notes. We have continued, which is, we have the word continued. I think we have it twice repeated here. We'll just remove it from here. Okay, so we have continued on page 6. Let me just go back to that. Continued on page 6. That is marginal note about the article. And also the government has talked tough while doing little, leading article, page 25. This is another marginal note. And it tells you that it's a leading article. Leading article means that it is going to be analytical, not expository, argumentative, which means you have the argument and counter-argument. So that is different. It's going to be different from this one here. I mean, I really just don't know whether I can have time to go to the main article, which is on page 26. Let me just go back to page 26 and see if I can show you the on page 26. Yes, actually, it does actually appear is on page 26, indeed, and that is it. And I'm sure I'm not going to actually spend time on reading this one here, because that's going to be taking me ages to do. But it's this one I am assuming it's going to be here. You will have argument and counter argument, and you will have analysis. You have the viewpoint or the of the writer, the editor of that article. So you'll see their opinion in this one here on page 25 as a leading article. So that is really important as a piece of information for the translation of the news item that I've mentioned to you before. Now we move on to the next point in this one. After the peritext and the epitext, we move on to other features that are relating to this one, which is, as we have covered the epitext, it will be cohesion, which is the next part.